Okay, so something serious that I want to talk about is, coronavirus conspiracies, let's say. COVID-19 conspiracies, current situations, conspiracies related to it. The reason I want to talk about this, okay, is not to bring the mood down or the tone, anything like that. I know some people come here to get away from all this stuff, but in my recent episode of Hermitcraft, I talked about folding at home and how we have Team Hermitcraft, where you can all join as well, using our computer power together to help research for the current situation. Okay, you can share your CPU cycles with scientists. They send out little work packets to crunch numbers, and then you send them back and you get points. I talked about that, and then I talked about it in an actual episode of Hermitcraft. So I put out a video on the second channel. For anyone out there who does folding at home, I even made a thing. Where is it? There it is. Bam. So you should see it on your screen. We have a team number. I believe it is 25909. If you'd like to join the Hermitcraft team, I was looking at it earlier. Someone's got like 100,000 points, which I was impressed by. So yeah, anyway, I talked about it in my main Hermitcraft series, right? And I was reading the comments, and I did get some people putting some pretty concerning anti-current situation messages, talking about how this is all lies. It's related to 5G. It's related to this and that. And it got me thinking, right, if I had the room with these people, what would I want to say? I'm not a big believer in shouting at people and calling them stupid. I'm a big believer in listening and reasoning. And so I thought, okay, what similar situation have I been? Because I, once upon a time, used to believe in conspiracies. When I say believe in conspiracies, they were obviously specific ones, not just all of them, It's a conspiracy, assume that you don't exist. I believe in it. I believe in it because it's a conspiracy. No. Yeah, like the moon landing was one of them. That was thanks to a documentary that Channel 4, I believe, aired when I was a kid. That really got me into some of that stuff. And 9/11 was a big one around the time. Now, over time, I've lost faith with a lot of that stuff. Mainly because I've become more interested in science and learning forms of entertainment on YouTube, the edutainment scene, and that's made me like a far more informed individual, I guess you could say, perhaps. But also I've become really interested in ignorance and one's own ignorance, and how your reality is constructed in your mind, and some of the tricks that your mind can play on you. We've all seen optical illusions, and those illusions extend beyond optics. They extend into reason and thinking as well. And other forms of thing that your brain does for you that sort of says, this is what's happening, right? So I am basically concerned about people not taking this seriously. And if I could use my voice in any way to help people to take it seriously and to perhaps be wary of what these conspiracies represent, then I would like to. And the way in which I'd say it is that as I'm kind of telling you right now, I once used to be into conspiratorial type of stuff. And I also think a lot of conspiratorial thinking extends a little bit from this idea of being in the know, right? There's something powerful about thinking that you're right. We all like to think we're right. Not too often do we like to think we're wrong about something. And being wrong about something is a blessing in disguise, Because once you know you're wrong about something, at least you're no longer going to continue to be wrong about it, because you know that whatever it was you were thinking weren't working out for you. And perhaps you can get onto the track of learning what's right and being in the know, in the better for yourself or whatever. So I wouldn't speak too specifically on what these theories are. Some of the reasoning behind them, again, that whole idea of like, oh, I know what's really going on, that doesn't necessarily mean it's so. And also there's a lot of conspiratorial thinking that revolves around suspicion of authority and motives as explanations to why things happen, okay? A motive is not really a good explanation if you think about it as to why something's happening, because motive doesn't have to be the reason that something takes place to begin with, and it's even if something has a motive to do something else, doesn't mean it then goes and does it. And the particular theory that was being put across in the comments of my video, which I deleted immediately. I thought I just don't want other people reading this and thinking of it as truth. This person offered no actual link or form of something you can go look up and verify, right? Nothing like that. But they said, do your research, people. Open up your eyes. And it got me thinking about research. Like, do we really know how to do research? The closest thing I've got to research is watching videos by people who've told me they've done the research. I don't think I've ever done really a proper bit of research, scientific, on stuff. I've looked things up on Wikipedia, you know. Actually doing the full-on research is probably a really difficult thing to verify facts and truth. It's a lot of hard work. And I think we should admit and be a bit more real with ourselves that a lot of us don't do that. You know, we rely on things like Wikipedia or something we heard, and I think that's fine. As long as when you express it and communicate it onwards, you're going to be able to go, hey, I heard this thing here. That's where I got it from, you know. I think that's fair. So anyway, this person was like suspicious of government and all of this, and to the point where they were talking about world governments. They were talking about multiple governments. So if you're into this conspiratorial thinking of like, hey, it's the governments are out to get us and all this. All right, I get the idea, right? That governments are actually big and evil and that they want to control everything. But here's the thing. Governments are made of people like you and me. And so we've got to have some faith that at some point there are actually normal people within that system. Surely it can't just be all evil people. That would just be madness, wouldn't it? And so if these things were true, that, you know, the government are out to kill us all with COVID or whatever, that takes a heck of a lot of people to be on the inside, right? A crazy amount of people have to be in on it. It's one of the things that got me over the 9/11 thing. You know, over time, when those documentaries that I'd watched at the time started to fade from memory, they kind of felt less vivid, and I learned some facts that were supposedly in these shows from experts, and yet you can find other experts saying opposite things to them. And then eventually, you know, okay, there's all this information floating around. What does this all mean? Kind of occurred to me like, it'd take a heck of a lot of people to make this thing actually happen, right? That's the problem. So if you think COVID is some sort of conspiracy, some sort of governments against the people, how many people need to be on the inside of this thing? It's bonkers. There surely can't be that many evil people all conspiring together and getting away with it. It's ridiculous. Where are the whistleblowers, you know? And whistleblowers are not people on the internet writing, do your research. Let's be frank. Okay? So, think of these things. Think it through a little bit, especially if you perhaps know someone who's buying into this stuff. And if you want to have a conversation with someone, really do listen to them and try and understand their point of view. That might help you to see where they're coming from and offer them some thoughts that might challenge their own. But it's really better, I think, to be polite and to try and reason and communicate and have a discussion, because if you get heated and agitated and irritable, people tend to stick their heels in and then not listen to one another and start to have a shouting match. So, yeah, as you can tell, I was really, really concerned by this, which is why I wanted to talk about it at length. And we'll be opening it up to some comments to hear what all of you think in just a moment. I've got one more point I wanted to make about this, which is it could have been trolling of all things, right? Very aware that some people like to troll and they get off on the idea of agitating people by creating a sort of character or a mindset, because we tend to get aggravated by other people's mindsets, right? Like you see some sort of, oh, this person on that side of the aisle did this, or that person on this side of the aisle says this, and it gets you all agitated, right? A lot of news, like, tends to focus around that. I say news, you know, like those articles you see that get shared. Oh, millennials moan and boomers said this and do that. Like, it's all divisive about, oh, what are these other people thinking? It's crazy. So, it crossed my mind that they might have been a troll, just having a laugh, putting this ridiculous comment into my video. That crossed my mind. Something else crossed my mind as well. It could have been an agent of disinformation. Now, this is a big topic that is not to be talked about lightly. There is some serious journalism that has been done that seems to have uncovered there's this idea that there's these Russian troll farms and they're trying to manipulate the American elections, and there's evidence of these people organizing events through Facebook and whatnot, because you can kind of organize these things with people that actually not meeting each other face to face, right? You're part of a Facebook group, there's like a protest, you're going to go get involved, but you never actually met anyone in that group face to face, maybe. And what they would do is they would organize Black Lives Matter kind of protests on the same side or the other side of the street as the Blue Lives Matter protests. Like, they were setting things up to be antagonized. Now, as I said, there's a whole other rabbit hole of stuff that goes on the internet. And I think a really great place you can go and learn about it is Smarter Every Day. Fantastic channel. And he has a 3-part series on social media. And there is this journalist, Renee, I always forget her second name, who deep dive and uncovered all of this stuff. And those videos are really interesting to watch. So this person, I say they could have been an agent of disinformation or misinformation. It also crossed my mind that, you know, in our current internet climate, there are people out there perhaps with motives to create this kind of dysfunction in society, right? To pit people against one another for their needs. And that's just another aspect of information on the internet now, right? That it could be someone intentionally sowing seeds of destructive capability for our social fabric and our ability to get along with one another. Now, I'm Tired says coronavirus was made in the lab and is not transferred through 5G. I don't really like this theory I'm hearing about that it might have been made in a lab, because if it was or it wasn't, if it was the decision of a government to do something like that, it ultimately ends up in racism and people blaming, people from a country who may have had no part in the decision a government would have taken. What I've also heard is I heard it with a so-called expert. There's lots of these experts going around, right? That in order to create coronavirus in a lab, like, that would be a astronomical, beyond our capabilities success in terms of, you know, not a success all the suffering it's created, a success in the ability to create it. Supposedly, this person claimed that, like, you know, it'd almost be miraculous. It would just be a modern marvel of science to actually create a virus like that in a lab. I don't know what the capabilities of us creating viruses in labs are. You know, it's another way to think about it. It's like, yeah, can we actually create this sort of stuff in a lab? Is that really something we can do yet? I don't know. This person claimed it wasn't the case. And I think I might have heard, like, a couple of other people saying similar things. And this is because I like to watch my edutainment videos, and I've watched tons of videos about, flattening the curve and all the dynamics behind coronavirus and all of this and all of that, right? Experts, says Tucker, in air quotes. Yeah, well, I believe the person who said, like, it being created in the lab would be like this marvel of modern science and is, like, almost impossible to their knowledge was, a well and truly certified person with experience. But here's the thing, right? In this day and age, we have exposure to experts through the form of podcasts. You know, there's other means as well, science communicators and whatnot. But I've observed that you can listen to podcasts, right? And you can hear experts contradict one another. And it shows you the complexity of reality, the complexity of some of the topics they have to be experts in. It's not all straightforward, and a lot of the time people are giving you their best guess or their best belief based on all the work they've done over the years or whatever, right? But do you really think those Russian trolls do what they do on Minecraft YouTube comment sections? Lol. I think they would target more adult audience. Yeah, it came to my mind not because I thought it was a likelihood, it was just that it was a possibility. But, you know, they could look for all sorts of places to see sods of distrust. I think it would make far more sense than to target political discussion areas than it would Minecraft videos. So, yeah, not suggesting that it was so. It was just a thought that crossed my mind that, hey, that's kind of what we live with today, right? Hey, it's kind of boring here to hear about COVID-19. I'm getting this off my chest, man. I had a comment that really upset me, and I wanted to take the opportunity to talk to all of you. Also, reminds me, I'm very, very sad to see people protesting in America and blocking entrances to hospitals in protest. What I said earlier is what I'll probably say again. When I looked at the interactions between these people, it's not discussion, it's shouting and raging at one another. And this is why I don't promote the whole idea of like, I think I'm right and you're wrong. Like, got to listen and communicate, because every time you see stuff like that happening, people are digging in their heels, and that's not going to help. Like, whatever side of the discussion you are, we need to communicate with one another. And so those shouting battles will certainly not lead to any form of resolution. Some of these geniuses protested in my state, and many of them had children and infants with them freaking out. Yeah, genius, like it's a little bit of a jab, an insult. That's the kind of stuff we should avoid if we're able to communicate with these people. Like, because you got to put your head in someone else's. Like, I can understand how they get to those points of view. Like, a lot of the time it sounds like people are driven by economics, right? By your needs. And if your need is to work and have a job, and someone's telling you it's all rubbish, and like, yeah, I can understand why you would go and protest, right? It doesn't make you right, but I can understand the motives. And perhaps rather than shouting at each other, if we could say, hey, look, I get what you're getting at. Your wallet's hurting and there's job uncertainties, but that's not gonna make this right. This is still a threat. Okay, so quite a few people in chat clearly want to move on from this, and I've had my little waffle, and I thank you all for listening. And I hope you all stay safe, and I hope you believe that what's happening is real, and listen to the advice and follow it. Asuma Says Live, says Black Velvet. Hey, it's all being recorded. I mean, if it turns into an Asuma Says video, in fact, it probably will, because I very much want to communicate the thoughts and ideas that I just expressed. They're very similar to things I've waffled about before, if you listened. Oh, the folding overlay. It's been on this entire time. Oh, dear God. Can't believe I left it on for so long. By the way, okay, the next 20 minutes of your stream, go subscribe to my Asuma Says channel.